So in part two of this keynote, I'd like to talk through examples of mistakes that I've made in the past related to hybrid and online teaching. And then I'd like to transition to some best practices that have occurred in our community. So I've already talked through the story that led to me rethinking how I used the group space, offloading direct instruction to the individual space. But then there were some mistakes that I made after I made that decision. So I think about when I offloaded direct instruction to videos, I didn't teach my students how to learn from a video. I just sort of assumed they would be able to. So I started to model the process at the beginning of the course. I also created note templates that will help guide students through outlining the important content from the videos. I also began to incorporate checks for understanding during the videos as well as after the videos, and allow students to pose questions after watching the video so that I knew next class what to focus on. I also began to offer an alternative to watching the video, so I authored an iBook that covered the same content of the videos, and it was just another modality for students to learn from. And I would say the biggest mistake that I made in the beginning was having these 10-minute videos. I've subsequently read research about engagement with videos, and it turns out that the first 2 minutes you get about the same level of engagement, and then after 2 minutes the engagement drops from the videos. And the 6-minute mark seems to be the point in time in which you can still teach content and gets a high level of engagement. So if you need to go past 2 minutes, the 6-minute mark seems to be the point in time that you then should divide your content into 2 videos. I also remember early in my journey that I learned about so many great, amazing tools and apps that really enhanced the class, and I dove right into it, and not realizing that it was overwhelming for my students to jump from platform to platform and keep track of usernames and accounts and all that stuff. So I started to bring those down and start to use the native apps in the learning management system. And even though the polling and the discussion boards were not as robust or as cool or exciting as some of the other tools that I had found online, it made for a less stressful and more helpful decision for my students. And there are many other mistakes that I've made along the way, and I've learned from those mistakes. But I think the biggest mistake that I made was not taking into consideration the cognitive load for students learning online, that it really takes more brain energy to be able to learn in this platform. And so my initial attempts, I had so much content, and I had to learn to pare down the content, that because the amount of brain energy it took to learn, that I could no longer teach the same amount of content than if I was doing it in person. So that is definitely has implications for classes and for curriculum. But I think to think that you can just move all of your content online and not take into consideration the toll it takes on students, I think would be a major mistake. And I hope folks can learn from my mistake.